What is up guys, Deadset here. Today I want to go over the Flashfire Wizard in depth. Not just the Torment 10 farming, but also GR70 plus gem leveling, bounty farming, and dead spread farming variations. Let's dive in. I won't take too much time on my personal thoughts on the build, as its qualities are fairly well known already. What I want to emphasize is that while I think the build excels at pure normal rift farming, it's already infamous for that, it is also perfectly capable for gem leveling purposes up to the GR70 to 75 range, as currently I'm capable of around 6-minute clears of GR70 with a subpar Ancient Wand of Woe and non-absurd paragons and also 0 enchantments on gear. With that out of the way, let's go over the rotation. A few background buffs play a quiet but very impactful role in Flashfire Wizard builds, most notably Diamond Skin, which switches between a resource management skill in Torment 10 and dead spread farming setups with the Rune Prism, and Pure Protection in Greater Rifts and Bounties with the Rune Enduring Skin. The second background buff varies between Storm Armor Scramble for the additional movement speed in normal Rifts and Bounties, and Magic Weapon Deflection in mid to high tier Greater Rifts. Regardless of the adjustments, spam Diamond Skin on cooldown and only reapply Storm Armor or Magic Weapon near the end of their 10-minute duration. The rest of the Flashfire Wizard rotation is fairly standard for Taurasha setups. Use Explosive Blast Chain Reaction as the major damage dealer and proc of the fire element, Frost Nova with Frozen Mist for cold, and Electrocute Surge of Power for the lightning proc and arcane power maintenance. Your mobility skill will also cover for the arcane proc, as Teleport gains a minor damage component from the Calamity rune. To streamline the build, you'll use a primary that will count towards one of the Taurasha elements, in this case lightning with Electrocute. The inclusion of a primary skill has varying importance depending on the content you clear. If you're pushing for damage, either due to the scaling difficulty of Greater Rifts or due to dropping Ingyomin bounties, a primary will be necessary to trigger half of the Focus and Restraint set damage bonus. In Greater Rifts specifically, the Rune Surge of Power will also be necessary as a generator to keep up the damage reduction from a cubed Aquila Cuirass. In normal rifts, the importance of the particular skill and rune selection diminishes, and as long as you maintain the lightning proc, you can toy around with the various options. The build's major damage dealer and the skill whose damage you will gear around is Explosive Blast, a low cooldown explosion that releases a 12-yard radial wave of energy emitting from the character without the need to aim. With its additional detonations, Chain Reaction is the strongest rune, and you will further augment it with the powers of Wand of Woe and Orb of Infinite Depth. As a fire skill, it will take care of yet another element in the Taurasha rotation, and, with the exception of dead spread farming setups, it will trigger the damage over time effect of the Firebird 4-piece bonus. This bonus, by the way, should not be underestimated, as it is responsible for roughly 20% of your total damage in an average fight. Usually perceived as a utility cooldown or part of Halo of Release, Frost Nova takes a firm damage spot in the Flashfire Wizard spec. Leaving its usual crowd control duties to Calamity, Frost Nova brings a Taurasha proc of its own, counting as a cold damage dealing skill with the Frozen Mist rune. Similarly to Explosive Blast, its effect is centered on the hero, making it more suitable to speed farming than other cold skills. Mobility is a cornerstone of any speedrun playstyle, and Wizards are no exception, either through a cubed Ingyomin Rifts, Aetherwalker in Bounties, or simply from Illusionist resets in Greater Rifts. You will overwrite the standard cooldown into a reasonably spammable state. You will be taking the rune Calamity, whose minor arcane damage will trigger the 4th elemental requirement of the Taurasha set bonus, as well as deliver a helpful 1-second stun. When pushing the limits of the build in Greater Rifts, your first utility slot will be taken up by Magic Weapon for the hefty shield provided by the Deflection rune, in turn doubled by Ashnagar's Bloodbracer. In all lower difficulties, Torments and Greater Rifts below 60, this slot should be taken up by Storm Armor. While its damage proc will be negligible, it offers a consistent movement speed increase from the Scramble rune, as you invariably get hit in a melee spellcasting build. Both skills sport a generous 10-minute duration, making it very simple to refresh them in between runs. The final slot will be taken up by Diamond Skin, a versatile utility skill that you will mold according to the content. In Greater Rifts and Bounties, you'll take the long-lasting Enduring Skin for the additional protection, reaching near-perfect overlap with the cooldown reduction focus of the build. In the Ingiom-focused normal rifting builds, you'll be taking the resource management-oriented Prism rune. Achieving permanent uptime from Ingiom procs, this utility cooldown will reduce the costs of all skills by the whopping 9 arcane power, single-handedly making the signature explosion spam of the build possible. This concludes the overview of the active skills. Now let us look through the passives. 2 utility picks provide the foundation of the passive choices. Evocation offers a simple but powerful effect, 20% additional cooldown reduction. Illusionist is a passive with a lot of depth and nuance. It serves the Flashfire wizard specifically by resetting the teleport cooldown when receiving a damage spike, and working with a pre-mitigation calculation gives you near infinite mobility. The additional 30% movement speed after teleporting makes the passive attractive even when doing non-threatening content. Audacity is a natural inclusion in a melee range spellcasting builds like this one, bringing an impressive 30% multiplicative damage increase against enemies within 15 yards. The final passive slot will be adjusted according to your needs. When farming keystones or dead spreads in normal rifts, use the standard elemental exposure. The total 20% damage increase is additive in nature and is a small increase overall, but any additional DPS is welcome. In Greater Rifts, take Galvanizing Ward. Amped by Ashnagar's Bloodbracer, this passive doubles your toughness with an absorption shield every time you stay unharmed for 5 seconds, a generously low requirement that you'll refresh often as you maneuver through a rift. Last but not least, consider taking Astral Presence in Bounties. At 25 arcane power per teleport with the Etherwalker in the cube, there will be unnecessary disruptions during long-distance teleports if you skip on the passive arcane power regen. It becomes a little more stable with this passive, so I definitely recommend that you take it. The build has 2 recommended gearing paths, a damage-oriented general version with Firebird's Finery set, used for Greater Rift progression and most of the Torment farming, and a specialized Dead's Breath farming version that uses Sage's Journey set. The general version of the build takes the combined power of Taurasha's elements and Firebird's Finery, taking 5 pieces and 3 pieces of each set respectively and cubing a Ring of Royal Grandeur to reduce the number of items for set bonus completion by 1. Taurasha's Amulet, Firebird Shoulders, and Firebird Boots are taken as mandatory, since they do not conflict between the 2 sets for the respective slot. Along with the aforementioned pieces, the Firebird set needs to occupy 1 more slot, which will depend on the content you're clearing. When you're focusing purely on damage output, the best option is to take Firebird's Source for the additional fire damage. In Greater Rifts and Bounties, your offhand will be occupied by a specific source for the purpose, so you have to take either Firebird's Helm, Firebird Chest, Firebird Gloves, or Firebird Pants to complete the set bonus. The other notable variation of the build focuses on Dead's Breath farming with Sage's Journey set, whose 3-piece power increases Dead's Breath drops by 1. As a non-conflicting piece with Taurasha's set, you'll be using Sage's Passage as your boots, plus 1 more piece of your choosing, either Sage's Helm or Sage's Gloves. You'll once again be using Ring of Royal Grandeur in the cube. Notice that in this variation, you have to wear Taurasha's belt for the 6-piece bonus completion. This variation lacks a recommended shoulder piece, so you can use any well-rolled legendary shoulder, like the Pauldrons of the Skeleton King, Deathwatch Mantle, or the Craftable Corruption. Rolls-wise, this spammy AoE-oriented build will benefit greatly from skill damage and cooldown reduction affixes, with a recommended cooldown reduction baseline of 50%. The breakpoint you will be striving to reach with perfected gear is 59%, which offers the best balance between toughness and diamond skin availability in Greater Rifts, because at this breakpoint your enduring skin downtime will be less than a second. High crit chance and crit damage are needed on the gloves, alongside intelligence and vitality. Explosive blast percentage damage can roll on the chest and shoulders, so obtain it on both. The latter should also include a cooldown reduction roll. The pants and belt should remain pure toughness slots. Both the helm and boots can roll meteor percentage, but it is generally recommended to get it only on the boots, leaving the helm for high intelligence and vitality rolls along with crit chance. Fire damage, double crit stats, and an open socket are best in slot for the amulet. Finally, seek high damage range, intelligence, crit chance, and cooldown reduction on your source. The ability to store the powers of Ring of Royal Grandeur in Kanai's cube opens various jewelry combinations that you can swap between for your particular purposes. When trying to maximize damage in Great Rifts or Bounties, for example, you'll implement a powerful offensive combo in the jewelry, the Bastions of Will set, Focus and Restraint. These rings provide an unrivaled 2.25 independent damage multiplier as long as you alternate between a primary and spender attacks, which you fulfill with regular casts of Electrocute along with the explosive blast spam. Seek crit chance, crit damage, cooldown reduction, and an open socket as the best in slot stats for both focus and restraint. With perfected gear, full ancients, augmented with more main stat, and high paragons above 1000, you can substitute these rings in torment runs for even more utility, adding Avery's Band and a fire damage Stone of Jordan. The SOJ is obviously taken for the consistent, rotation-independent damage increase. Avery's Band is an Act 3 cash legendary ring whose unique property extends your pickup radius up to 30 yards for a generous 10-second period. Triggered, maximized, and constantly refreshed from the endless stream of Boon of the Hoarder gold, this ring and the gem will keep you sped up and protected throughout the rift. One of the signature wizard weapons finally takes a spotlight in patch 2.4. Wand of Woe is a dedicated explosive blast legendary wand that not only increases the skill's damage by up to 100%, but has a unique property that adds 3 additional explosions per cast. Along with Chain Reaction, this produces the build's near infinite detonations, which are perfect for speed clears. The ideal rolls include high damage range, intelligence, and cooldown reduction. As a tip to circumvent the rarity of the item, as this is the rarest wand, it is recommended that you collect or craft rare level 70 wands, they're called Sovereign Diabolic Wand, in bulk at the blacksmith, and then use the upgrade rare recipe in Kanai's cube. The recipe is called Hope of Cain and involves 1 rare item, 50 of the white, blue and yellow crafting materials, and it will only produce legendary wands, cutting down all the other one-handers and set wands from the RNG pool that you would otherwise have to deal with from regular gambling. When farming normal rifts, the preferable belt is Gold Wrap. Synergizing with Boon of the Hoarder and later on with Avery's Band, Gold Wrap will render you practically invulnerable and allow you to focus on killing and looting without any regard to your safety. Keep in mind that this recommendation is only applicable for in-Guillaume focus builds, where kill speed and elite hunting are priority. Gold does not drop in greater rifts, and in bounties you often have to cross great distances without elites on the way, making Gold Wrap obsolete. You will substitute it with a Talrasha's belt and shift gear around into better legendary for the purpose. As previously mentioned, the offhand will vary on the content you're clearing. In pure rift farming, where safety is guaranteed by the Gold Wrap, you should take advantage of the highest damage increase and use a Firebird source. In the gold lacking greater rifts and when Deadspread farming, where you drop the Firebird set altogether, you should use Orb of Infinite Depth for the 20% multiplicative damage increase and perhaps even more importantly, the substantial 60% damage reduction at the maximum 4 stacks. Finally, in bounties, mobility is paramount, so the recommendation is to take the craftable Cosmic Strand, which gives you the Wormhole rune for free and eases your arcane power spending from Etherwalker teleports, allowing you to cover greater distances more quickly. In non-Gold Wrap content like Great Rifts and Bounties, it is recommended to take Ashnagar's Bloodbracer to double the potency of your shields, a great addition to the otherwise fragile Taurasha builds. This bracer allows the overlap of enduring skin, provides twice the shield from deflection, and doubles the absorption from galvanizing ward. In normal Torment runs, the protection from Gold Wrap makes Ashngar's Blood Bracer redundant, and it is best replaced by a utility legendary. Either wearing Nemesis Bracers and cubing Warzekian arm guards, or vice versa, will speed up your clears with more frequent elites and environment destruction speed boosts. While the AoE inherent to the build does an excellent job of keeping Warzekian movement speed bonus up by itself, you can trivialize the Bracer requirement with the legendary gem Wreath of Lightning, as it targets destructible objects on its own when procced. You will add and subtract damage and utility gems depending on the content. The recommended Greater Rift setup is Bane of the Trapped, Bane of the Stricken, and Bane of the Powerful. The recommended Bounty setup is Bane of the Trapped, Bane of the Powerful, and Wreath of Lightning. And finally, the recommended Normal Rift setup is Bane of the Trapped, Wreath of Lightning, and Boon of the Hoarder. Now let me walk you through the gem choices. Bane of the Trapped is the staple gem of the build, a potent source of additional damage as it is its own multiplier in your total damage calculation. The gem procs itself with its level 25 property, making it an inseparable part of a melee range setup. Bane of the Stricken will be part of your Greater Rift setup, building up your damage multiplicatively in prolonged fights, and with a level 25 bonus specifically targeting Rift Guardians, this gem is designed to assist AoE heavy builds in a struggle against single target, high health enemies. Flashfire wizards can be considered part of the group, making the inclusion of the gem necessary. Recommended for Greater Rifts and Bounties, Bane of the Powerful is a speedrun appropriate gem that provides a 20% additive damage increase after killing an elite pack. The bonus duration upgrades at a steady pace with gem levels, and is usually a good indicator of your power. If it falls off, you are past the limits of your current Taurasha setup, and you'll do better by lowering the difficulty. Wreath of Lightning comes from the original batch of legendary gems, and its modest damage proc can be largely ignored by any geared character. Its utility bonuses, however, are a great fit in many farming builds, and it is recommended to take it in normal rifts and bounties. The lightning proc targets destructible objects just as much as monsters, offering a reliable long-distance trigger for the Warzekian Arm Guard's unique effect. The gem movement speed related level 25 bonus is just icing on the cake. Boon of the Hoarder is a high utility gem for pure torment clears. Firstly, it feeds you practically infinite gold. At its maximum level 50, it nets you an average 20 to 30 million gold per Torment 10 run, with no particular focus on gold find on stats. Secondly, it gives you a massive short-term speed boost while picking up gold, and you will not even have to focus on the task when you start wearing Avarice Band because of its massive pickup radius bonus. The weapon slot of Kanai's cube will vary between the Furnace in Greater Rifts, Ingiom for normal rifting, and Aetherwalker for bounties. The Furnace provides 50% additional elite damage, which speeds up Greater Rift clear times greatly, as Champion and Rift Guardian fights are the usual bottleneck. For normal rifts, Ingiom shaves 10 seconds off the cooldown of all of your skills after you kill an elite pack. This effect has a generous 15-second duration, during which you're almost guaranteed to find a new elite pack and refresh its bonuses. Because of that, in all but the worst rifting circumstances, you have permanent uptime of all of your important cooldowns. This is not the case with bounties, however, and many objectives will have too few elites to justify Ingiom. It is best replaced by an Aetherwalker, which turns teleport into a spender and allows near infinite mobility. The armor slot of Kanai's cube will vary between Aquila Cuirass in Greater Rifts and Nemesis Bracers or Warzekian Arm Guards in other content. Aquila Cuirass will halve incoming damage as long as arcane power does not dip below 90% of its reserve, which has a very high uptime in the non-Ingiom Greater Rift variation. This will be unnecessary in easier content, where the slot should be taken up by a utility legendary. Nemesis Bracers will spawn you an elite for every shrine or pylon pickup, while Warzekians will consistently speed you up from Wreath of Lightning environment destruction. An alternative for those bracers if you truly feel like you're lacking damage are Nilfur's Boast Boots. They will double the damage of your meteors by default and triple it against 3 or less enemies. The final item to tie the two sets together is, of course, the Ring of Royal Grandeur, a cash legendary from Act 1 Bounties. The ability to run with the 6-piece rush bonuses and 4-piece Firebird bonuses, or Sage's set, on top of the better rings, dodging the undesirable guaranteed stats on Grandeur by queuing its power is a tremendous boost to the build. In the Paragon points, max out movement speed to the 25% cap and spend the rest on intelligence in the core section. Prioritize both crit stats and then cooldown reduction in offense. Armor followed by life percentage and then all resistance in defense, and finally focus on resource cost reduction and area damage in utility. And this is it for the in-depth look at the Flashfire Wizard. I hope you enjoyed the guide, and if you did, I would appreciate your subscription to my channel. Talk to me on Twitter and Facebook that are linked below, and I'll see you guys next time.